Hey guys, Blake Cannon and Jay Scott here with HornScore. Today we are going to do a tutorial video of how to field judge a bull elk. Obviously, Jay's been field judging bulls for a very long time, and we're going to talk a little bit about how he leverages the app to do it now with our new app, but also more general stuff. Just kind of what he was looking for, and I'm going to do my best to pick his brain and kind of ask him the questions: what he's looking for, when, and why, and show you how we use the app to field judge elk. Jay, you want to add anything before we get started?
Good to be here with you, Blake. Look forward to kind of sharing the app and letting you kind of see how I look at certain animals and break down animals. So let's just dive right in here.
Perfect. So, just so you guys know, I'm screen sharing this on a Mac. That's why you see a cursor. So it's a mirror of the iPhone. So some things work a little different in terms of the function of sliding and stuff like that. But so from the home page, you have two ways that you can originate a score. You can do it straight from these field judge calculator links, or you can go to the new score button. Either way, whatever animal you most recently judged or scored is going to pop up first. So in this case, it's an elk. So we'll go ahead and take it from this spot right here on the home page. And this is going to pull you up into the start a new score page. One thing I want to show real quick, because I haven't done this in other tutorials, if you were in the field and you wanted to be really fast, all this information, I can skip it and I could go right in to add my video, and it's optional. You can always go back and add it later. But for the sake
And
of,
and or Blake, you could just go to start scoring and not add any content or video or photo content as well, correct?
yeah, so if I was, let's say I'm in the field looking at a bull and I want to start judging him immediately, the way I do it fast is I do use defaults. So within a matter of, a few seconds, let's say I think it's a 310 bull, done, add photos, videos, start scoring, and I'm on my calculator with defaults pulled up. Maybe I'm looking in my spotter, and then maybe I've gone back and said, hey, I took some video of this bull. I want to add it. Now I can go up to this media button and I can add my media once I've already started my score or that night or whatever. So that's a really fast way to get to a score quickly. But for this case, for the example, we are uploading media. Obviously, time's not a constraint, so we'll kind of walk through the process. And the bull we're going to score is name is Curvy, correct, Jay?
Yeah, and the video that I've sent you is Curvy in 2020. Hunter Meekum and I at the Odd Six Ranch were able to watch this bull for 5 years and ended up killing him in 2022. But this video is in 2020, so maybe just put Curvy 2020 there, Blake.
Perfect.
And I think we should go ahead and use a default, and let's just put in the 360 default. So when you click the button there, defaults, you get a choice between 5x5s up to I think about 270, and then the 6x6 bulls start right there at 270 and up. So let's put this bull at about 360 6x6 bull. And what that's going to do, it's going to input those numbers that are closest to a 360. Now, there's a lot of different ways to get to 360, but these are general numbers that get you close to 360 that you know we prepared and want the users to be able to compare the numbers plus or minus. So if you air judge it, you have a rough idea of what it is. That's what the default is there for 360.
Yep. And then you can also hit this show more optional. A lot of times you might do this after you've judged something, but for the example, we'll just do it now. And the labeling system, it's like a folder system, but you can add multiple labels to multiple scores. So, and they're species specific labels. So for this bull, for example, Jay would have already created this because he's been watching this bull for a long time.
I
But you
would do
might make a year.
2020.
So
Yeah.
let's say 2020 is going to be one label. Once I hit create, this label is automatically associated to the score, just as a heads up when you create a new one. And then you might name the bull, right? And then you would potentially name for
I would
you,
do Ot 6 Ranch.
which I think I'm spelling this right.
Yep.
So now you have this bull associated with the year, the name, and the ranch. So if I went back and looked at this later, I could do Curvy and Ot 6 Ranch, and then I could see the scores from all the years that I've put in. So different ways to leverage it, but in this example, that would probably fit.
And another
Um,
thing, Blake, you could put the county you're in, you could put the unit you're in, you could put the state you're in. I mean, there's many ways to do the labels here.
Yeah, tons. And then the next thing we have is our location. And without divulging too much, I don't know what Jay wants to put out on it, but
So obviously,
um,
I'd click United States there. I'd click Colorado, and it's no secret that the Ot 6 Ranch is in Huerfano County. So go down
which
to H.
is I was about to ask what that starts with. So this one, and that would
Yep.
be the county. And now you hit set location. And if you wanted to go back and add a unit, it'll preserve the county and have the unit as well. And then you have the date that it's accurately reflected, which you can change. So, this would be a field judge score. So I'd go change. The first thing I do is go back, and I'm guessing this was in September.
Yep.
And you said 2020.
Yes, sir.
So I would change the year. And then if you want to change the day, it's just the same thing as all other iOS, iPhone. You hit the September 2020, and then you can change the date. And we'll just say this was September 10th. I don't remember the exact date, but close enough for an example. We hit done. And then if you want to put an estimated age, which for a guy
Yeah,
like
we
Jay, you'd want to in this example probably.
yeah, we'll see, and maybe we'll go over it when the video pulls up. But in 2020, we figured the bull was probably a 7-year-old bull.
Perfect. So you have half years here. You just set your estimated age. All this is editable. So once I'm done with that, that's all the score information I have. The next thing is to select your media. And just as a reminder, we're obviously not doing it for this score, but you do have your practice libraries here. So if you hit this Open American Elk, you can see right now there's 4 videos of bulls for you to go score that have a known score at the end of the video if you want to go practice. Many of those are OT6 ranch bulls as well. And so in this case, we're going to use our own. You're going to hit add photo video. You have 2 options here: multiple videos, photos, single video photo. The only benefit to using the single is you can use the in-app trimmer to trim your video down. So if you know your videos or if you know a video is really long and you need to trim it before using it, just hit that single. In this case, I'm pretty sure they're all relatively short, so we're going to go ahead and hit multiple videos / photos. It's going to pull up my library here, and let's say we're going to select. How many do you want in here, Jay?
Oh, let's do 3. Maybe that one just below your cursor there is the first one.
This one?
No, down to the left,
That
right in the
one?
middle. Oh, that's
Okay.
fine too, but the one right in the middle that's broadside, he's facing to the right.
Oh, hang on one second. Broadside facing to the right. This
Right
one?
there. Yep.
Got it. I was trying, and we'll hit that.
And
We'll go
then
ahead.
and then the video in the upper right would be a good one. There you
Okay.
go.
We'll go ahead and hit add. It's going to upload these files. All right, perfect. So the first thing you want to do is set your poster frame, which is going to be your share image. Your share image is like your thumbnail when you go to share the score later. So you could pick out of these 4 videos, whichever one. Say I wanted this video. I just click that poster frame box, and whatever I want the share image to be of the bull. Wouldn't want it to be a bush, obviously. So let's say I wanted it to be right there. That would be my share image. You can kind of pick and choose whichever one you want. And we've covered this in other tutorial videos as well. So once we've added our media, we're going to go and we've set our poster frame. We hit next, start scoring. And now we're on the calculator. And as you guys can all see, you have our default of 360 inches pre-filled. The calculator is pre-filled with some average measurements for a 360-inch typical 6x6 bull here. The other thing you want to notice is you can see we have our 4 media files, so 4 videos uploaded. To cycle between these media files, you just use these arrows on the side of the score. Now, let's get into the fun stuff here, Jay. So when you start evaluating a bull elk, right now, we're working off the fact that you would have a 360-inch kind of air judge on this bull. That's what Jay looks at and goes, that looks like a 360-inch bull. And I believe he is a typical 6x6, correct?
Yeah, straight clean 6.
Straight clean 6. So you're looking, going, okay, that's. Now, once you actually start diving in, you always have kind of a guess in your head when you look at something. But then what's the first thing, kind of your process that you dive into when you want to start breaking one down?
Yeah, so no matter what animal I'm looking at, I obviously try and look at the animal when he's standing next to other animals. In this video clip right here, there's actually, I believe, a couple videos where a cow or something goes by, where I'm trying to get a judge of body size. I'm trying to look at the animal's characteristics. I'm trying to look at the facial features, the body features, and particularly on bull elk, like right there when he's walking. I'm looking for a hump on his back. I'm looking for a swayed belly. I'm looking for sunken hips. What does that mean? Sunken hips mean an older bull. A big hump on the back typically means an older bull. I'm trying to get a level of maturity. I'm trying to get just an estimation on age. Knowing this bull like Hunter and I, got to spend a lot of time with him. We figured he's 7 years old in this video. But if I had just seen this bull for the first time, my initial thoughts going through my head, and it's going very quickly, is I'm trying to estimate, is this a mature bull? Is he a young bull? Is he an old bull? How old do I think he is roughly? Once I establish that, then I'm trying to look at how is his body size compared to other bulls. He may be an old bull, but he has a small body. He may be a young bull, but he has a big body. I'm trying to determine body size. The reason for that is I want to be able to make an accurate judge on his antlers. And before I can really start looking at his antlers, even though on this particular bull, your eyes are immediately drawn to his antlers, this is a great pose right there next to that calf and that cow. And this is one of the first times I realized that Kirby actually has a small body. And there's another clip that's not here on this field judge, but another bull named Pretty Boy, who was actually a couple years older, comes walking into frame and literally dwarfed the size of Kirby. And that's when I first realized that I had seen Hunter and I had seen Kirby several times, but realized that he actually had a fairly small body. And so that's important when you're judging antler size, because if you have a small body, antlers are going to look bigger. If you have a big body, antlers are going to look smaller. A couple of poses right there, Blake, if you want to click over to the guide, right there in that pose when he's standing broadside, typically from the top of the back down to the bottom of the belly is generally in that 29 to 30 inches range. And right here in the guide, you'll actually see
How we leverage that. Yeah.
yeah, how we leverage the different anatomical characteristics of the body in trying to judge the main beam length and trying to judge the length of the fourth points, the third points. But, knowing that that's, 28 to 30, 29 to 30 from the top of the back. And there's a great slide, Blake, right there, top of back to bottom of belly. That typically is always in that 29 to 30 inch range. Now, obviously, it varies between if you have a bigger bodied bull or a smaller bodied bull. But when in that particular picture, when the bull has his head laid back, you can kind of extrapolate that, 29, 30 inches up there to that fourth point. And kind of lay that line in there and with your eye. And I've been doing that for years. Another example is the anatomical from the eye to the tip of the nose, which is typically 12 to 13 inches. We have a slide there. And then so that's 12 to 13 inches right there. And then from the burr to the tip of the nose, which is typically that 16 to 16 and a half inch mark. So right there, that's a good example of that bull has his head back. I'm trying to measure those front points in relation to from that burr to the tip of nose. And obviously when those points curve up like that, it's a little bit difficult, but we've built this app with all of these anatomicals to basically try and help people use anatomicals to field judge. In this particular case, Curvy in 2020, air judge is at about a 360 bull. If I start breaking down the points, and there's probably one of the other videos, Blake, that's a little bit more zoomed in and close up, but you can also show them how you can zoom.
Yeah. So you can, one thing just to reiterate. So the first thing you do is you look at body size, A, to determine maturity, and B, to make sure the anatomicals you're referencing are correct, right? Especially where you're at regionally. If you're more north, the bodies might be bigger, shrinks up the antlers. Like the one I always think of is that really popular bull in Colorado, split fives.
Yeah.
If you just look at him by himself, he doesn't look like his antlers don't look that overwhelming. But then you see him stand next to a bunch of 330 bulls, and he looks like an absolute behemoth because his body's huge.
Yeah,
So
or you see him standing next to a Volvo transport van and he looks
yeah,
as
exactly.
bigger than the van.
Yeah.
Body size is everything when you're judging animals, um, for sure. Blake, right here, one thing I look at right there is your tip to tip, your ear tip. You're 21, 22 inches right there. So if you're trying to judge inside spread, and then you can also take the ear length and add that to your inside spread there. This bull does not strike me as a very particular wide bull.
Mhm.
I think he's around 36 inches. So if we want to go over to our inside spread, I'm going to throw in 36 inches there
Oh,
in our calculator.
sorry, that's my fingers sliding on the Mac going the wrong direction.
Yeah,
Couldn't get
and
back to this.
guys, it's really easy to use on your phone. Blake's using a Mac just so he can have the cursor and kind of show you guys. So
Yep.
let's just enter an even 36, even though we could do eights here, Blake. So you can either do minus or you can type in the number 36.
Yeah, so what I do whenever I'm working off a default, just out of habit, I use the +1, -1 generally because I'm close, but you could also always just zero that and then type in your 36 and hit save. So
Okay.
however you want to do it. But the meat of the app, so if you don't have the historical knowledge that Jay does, if you don't know anatomicals off your top of your head, which most of us don't, I know I don't, I have to go back and reference them and look, is you can always just, it's in this anatomicals tab right here, and if you want to see where it's taken, you just click the picture like we showed a minute ago, um, and then you can see the reference line as well as the average measurement. Over time, you certainly start to memorize the ones that you utilize a lot, right? Like I've memorized some of them, but if you don't, that's where you do it. Another thing, as we're working through this, if you're not sure what anatomical reference, like the one Jay just mentioned a minute ago, where you use the top of the back, bottom belly to measure the fourth, things like that can really expedite the process, right? When you know which measurement to use. And if you go look and you actually click on the measurement itself, where it says P4 here, for example, you can see that we give a reference to this anatomical and tell you. So it's kind of the guide broken down segment by segment, can be super helpful, especially when you're learning. So just a couple of notes, but so we have, based on this video, you change that inside spread to 36 inches.
Yeah, and
Now,
let's go back and start with the first points. One thing to mention here, Blake, you notice the P1, P2, P3. That is our way of saying points. Other scoring systems, Boone and Crockett, Pope and Young, they use G1, G2, G3. We just use point 0.1, point 0.2, point 0.3, point 0.4, etc. When I'm looking at this bull head on right there, so my default for a 360 bull has his fronts at 15 and 16. I believe his left front is a little short at 15. His right front is 16. And if you zoom in right there, Blake, you can show them how you can zoom in. There's places where you can see that that left seems like it's a little bit shorter than the right. So I'm going to give the left a 15, the right P1 a 16. I'm actually with a little bit of yeah, I'll let you fill those in there. Moving on to the P2s. Notice how compared to those P1s, notice how they seem like they have a little bit more length, a little bit more curl. I'm going to go with 17 on both of those for my estimation.
yep. And what I always do whenever you're matching, so I'm 17, you always can just hit this same LR. So right now I believe I'm on the left P2. If I hit save, they're both going to be 17, just to make it a
Yeah,
little bit faster.
and then when you go to those P3s, so you might have to play the video a little bit there. You can see that left one um, kind of flares out, but the right one flares out and then tips back in. I think that right P3 has just a little bit more length at 19, and I'm going to go with 18 on the left P3, so a little bit bigger than the default. He's got
And then
great thirds.
the one thing too on these thirds, it's really nice to look at the thirds right head on or facing away, because you can generally see the belly of that point a lot better. Whereas from a side, a lot of times shorts, because you're looking at a point that's kind of curving this way, you generally can't perceive that curve as
Yeah,
well as you can from
and
this angle.
I'm always looking for points that are straight. Straight points are shorter. I'm always looking for points that are longer. So I'm looking for belly and curve. If I'm looking at, and you know wanting a bull to grow and wanting to be big, I'm making sure that he's got a lot of belly and curve. This bull, this was kind of the first year where Kirby really put on a lot of character, really got that belly and that curve. Like right there, you can see his P1s, his P2s have curve, his P3s have curve. Even if you see his P4s, they're tipping in and he's getting character. He's getting that belly and curve, which is good. If we're moving on to the P4s, I think that they are right on with the default right there at that 19-inch mark.
Yeah, and we can always cycle too, Jay, if you want me
Yeah, and
to
like right
cycle.
there, that's a good example of, if you just saw that angle right there, you might think this bull is, 380, 390. But then when you realize when he turns and he's fairly narrow, you kind of want to get a context of all the antler and with the body, and I want him to turn. And that's one of the things, Blake and I, when we created this app, we wanted the ability to watch video. We wanted the ability to rewind, to fast forward, and Blake can even show you right here where you can actually go frame by frame.
Which in this
Um,
video is perfect because he's running. So right, it's hard to get it to kind of your thumb to stop. And this another thing, just pointing out, like this really displays that curvature on the fronts you were talking about. You can really see those things tip up from this angle, and that's where a lot of times, right, Jay, you're not just looking at one angle and taking a perception of a point. It's like you might punch something in, you might look at the fronts from front on and go, oh, it looks 16. Then he turns, it's like, oh, that's not 16, that's more like 14 and a half. It's kind of a whole it's a whole evolution, where you're
it,
punching, changing.
Yeah, and kind of biting and chewing on it, and then going, I don't think he's quite that long. And, that's why I love looking at angles. I love video. In my mind, video is king. Photos can be deceiving. Even videos can be deceiving, but trying to get multiple angles, that's why we wanted to be able to load multiple videos on this app to get all of the angles. And guys, at any time, you can go back and adjust and change these numbers. You also notice in this particular case, I'm just using whole numbers. We could be going 15 and 2/8, 16 and 4/8. I mean, we could really be getting down in the nitty gritty. Typically with elk, I tend to stay with the whole numbers. But again here, so let's go on to the P5s. The P5s, that left P5 at certain angles looks just a hair shorter. I'm gonna say it's 14, and I'm gonna say the right one is 15. Um, and so not very far off of the default. And then moving on to the main beams, this bull is very beamy. He's got beautiful beams. Um, and we'll do the mass in a second, but I think that both of these beams, the way they go back, the distance from the fourth point to the tip, the distance from the burr to the fourth is typically 30 inches. I think these beams on both sides are 53. So I'm going to give Kirby in 2020 53-inch beams. I'm going to do same LR there. And then the mass, I don't think he's quite 29. If you click on our M right there, we've got a little breakdown that tells we always are scoring these bulls in um, we're given a range. Light is 25, 30 is heavy. And so I give Kirby in 2020, I give him a 28 on each side.
So Jay, just to give people, a little more clarity on that, when you're looking at mass, you're not trying to look at measurements. You're trying to just look at the general nature. Does the bull look dark antlered? Does he look like he carries mass throughout his antlers? And it's the one thing that you kind of have you have a general idea when you look at an animal whether he's heavy or not, right off the bat. And if you stay within that range, what we really want people to understand is as long as you're in the ballpark on mass, taking the sum, you're not going to mess up your score too much. Where you mess up mass is if you try to do individual measurements, your range can get all over the place. But it just, unless a bull's just a freak, it doesn't vary that much. Where
In other
you
words,
really
it's a
need to be,
5-inch gap. It's
yeah,
25 to 30, so it's a 5-inch gap per side. So the most you could be off on the whole elk if you completely missed it would be 10 inches.
yeah,
So, it comes from a lot of experience. You mentioned the color of antler. A lot of times when those bulls are dark antlered, it seems like they're heavier. A lot of times when they're real white colored and they look light, a lot of times they're a light. Their mass is light. So keep that in mind. That's a couple tips. But the reason that we wanted to make this range is because we've scored so many elk and studied so many charts that between 25 and 30, if you can really just get good at seeing light, medium, and heavy, that 25, that 27 and a half, 28, and that 30, you're going to be pretty dang close. In other words, if it was 25, but you estimated 27 and a half, you're only going to be off 5 inches total on your mass.
yep.
Even if you missed it completely. So, that 25 to 30 is a really good indicator. Now, there are some bulls that are heavier than 30, but it's not extremely, it doesn't happen all the time. So 30 is a good number. So 28 here on curvy, 53-inch beams. It gives them a left side total of 164, a right side total of 167, for a total of, with 36, right at 367. And I think that's a real fair judge of where curvy was in 2020.
Yeah, just to highlight in on a couple more things you said, you talked about the main beam. The one that's really helped me is that 30 inches from the bird of the forest, visualizing that and then going, okay, what does the rest of the beam look like it is relative to that? Another one that I know you use some is from the top of the shoulder down to the bottom of the hoof. That one kind of depends a little bit on the foliage the bull's in and what your video is, but that's a good visual, which I believe is 52 to
52 to
56 inch.
56. Mm-hmm.
That's a good one to kind of picture. So just to give people reference when you're trying to look at a beam, I know it's down here on the bottom of our chart here somewhere. This one's about 52 to 56 inches. It gives you another visual because I think the beam is sometimes hard for people because it's such a long measurement. It's hard to kind of grasp what that is. So if you can take that 30 inches from the bird of the fourth, that tends to start knocking stuff down quite a bit and getting you a lot closer. Because the beam's one that I tend to see people get pretty far off of, myself included when I'm off. That's the one if I can use a couple of those reference points, that goes a long ways because it's easier for I think a lot of people to use a anatomical reference that's close in length to the actual measurement you're trying to judge.
If you zoom in right there, and get pretty tight, on that main beam, you can, from the burr to where the fourth point goes up, that typically along on an average size 6x6 and larger, that typically is always very close to 30 inches. So from that point, if you go up right where it hits the fourth, Blake, with your cursor,
Yep.
and then go on the other side, go on this offside there, and then trace that back to the tip of the beam. For me, that looks 30 inches, and then the rest of that looks like it's about 23. That's why I'm saying 53-inch beams
Yep.
on this bowl.
Yep. And that's probably the best visual. And then if you have a lot of media or you have one video where an animal's constantly turning their head, give yourself a lot of perspectives. In this case, we kind of have several videos where the bull is, looking at different angles and whatnot. And this video is like a really nice, clear one. And he looks
And
big in this
And
frame
if you
because he's
only
going
got
away.
that look, he's going away. You can't really see that he's kind of a narrow bull. His backs look huge. The way the beam tips. I mean, if you just saw that look, I mean, I've put this bull on my Instagram before and had lots of people say, 395, 400. And he looks like that. But then when you switch to that final video where he's kind of head on, you get a sense of body size, and you get a sense of he's smaller bodied right there when those cows are walking by. I mean, he's not much different than that mature cow right there.
Yeah.
And then when he turns his head, you can just tell he's a little bit dwarf body there as a 7-year old. Um, and so multiple angles. It's super important to get as many angles as you can. And again, guys, we're just guessing. All of this, we can try and be as accurate as we want, but it's all an accurate guess, and we're trying to help people become make a better guess. That's really all it is. So the default here was 360. Once we kind of added him up, I think he's a little bit closer to 367 gross. Now, Blake, I think you probably want to show what you do here to save this score, what you do to share this score, etc.
Yeah. So one thing to note is, let's say this was a project we were working on in the field. It's all this information stored on my phone. So if I go back to the home page here, this score's here. So you can see my labels,
You
everything
didn't
on
have to
here.
hit save or nothing.
No, it's already saved on my phone. It's also going to be stored over here in my scores. So if I ever wanted to just leave and let's say I'm not done with it, I don't want to upload it, you're out of service, whatever the reasoning is, you can always access this score again. So now I'm back to the same page we were just on a minute ago. Just want to clarify that to people so they don't feel like they're going to lose their information ever. And we didn't touch on all the tools and stuff. We have way more content on that that's just tool specific. But once I'm done with the score and I'm ready to upload it to the cloud, so the score is already saved locally on your device. Uploading it to the cloud, A, allows you to share the score, and B, it preserves the score in your count on the to the cloud. So if you ever lose your phone, want to access it on the website, you're never going to lose this score. So I hit that upload and share button in the bottom right. The first thing I would want to do is this is pulled from that poster frame from that upload media screen. So if I wanted to edit this thumbnail, and one thing you'll find yourself in a lot is it's more so on harvest photos. If the photo isn't fitting in the aspect ratio of our share thumbnail, you can hit this fit horizontally, fit vertically. Doesn't tend to be as much of a problem for field judging content because usually it's more at a distance. But if you're not getting a photo to fit, you would use one of these two options depending on the photo. So once you've edited your thumbnail, you hit save. The only thing that's required on this screen is your privacy option. So you set your privacy, and you can select it as private, unlisted, or public. What I've told people in the past is I almost never set my scores to private, me personally. Um, but I set it to unlisted. If I didn't want to share it public, I would set it as unlisted because more times than not, I'm still going to share the score to friends, buddies, whatever, and that's what you need for unlisted. So private is it's only you can see the score. It's on your scores and nowhere else. There's no shareable link. If it's unlisted, it's technically still like a private score, but you can share the score out to people. If it's public, you can share the score out and it populates in the HornScore public scores. So we'll make this one unlisted if I didn't want to make this a public score. And then my location's preserved, so if I hadn't added on the first screen, it would be here. And the next thing is this select media to upload. This is a good example because, with 4 videos, you can see the size of my files here. And if you get over 200 total megabytes, and you can see I'm at about 98 here, so even with 4 videos, we're not even close to the recommended. Now you can upload as much as you want, but our recommended is 200 megabytes just because it becomes painfully slow to upload past that point. But if you wanted to not upload some of these videos and leave them just locally, then you could uncheck these. So if I wanted to reduce, or if I wanted to get rid of this one, and if I'm not sure which one I'm doing, I just hit this thumbnail icon right here. But then I would hit done. And if I wanted to add a caption and say tutorial with Jay, and I can tag him, J Scott Outdoors, okay. And that would work as a caption for a public score, but it also works as a note for a private score. So if I wanted to
Right.
make a note for myself, like, X Meadow at 8:38 a.m., I could do that.
And also, if you're sharing with a buddy, you could ask them questions. You could put
Yep.
notes in there. I mean, we've actually made that box fairly extensive, so you can put quite a few characters in there,
Yep.
and share.
And then so this is just kind of like your input screen. Then you go to your share score screen. And the first thing you're going to want to do is go down to the bottom right here, hit upload to cloud and share. And how long this takes depends on how long your media is. If you have a 3-minute video, it's obviously going to take a lot longer than a couple of 10-second videos. It's variable depending on what it is that you're uploading. And you can do this at any time whenever you're ready to share the score.
Pretty fast for 4 videos.
For 4 videos, yeah. And it's obviously dependent on your connectivity, whether you're on, just like anything, watching a Netflix video. If you're on good Wi-Fi, it's faster. If you're on cell service, with bad service, it's slower. It fluctuates some. So once your score is uploaded, it's going to immediately populate and give you all of your sharing options here. So share to HornScore users is sharing within the app. So if I wanted to share this to Jay within the app, and he'll get a notification on his app saying HornScore BC shared a score, that's how I would share it. So if I were to
So
click
share it.
this, you can see, let's go down to, and I can either just scroll within my followers or I can search Jay and say, what, for example, obviously we just did this, but no, I capitalized the S, but what do you think he scores? And then Jay would then have access to all of the media in the score as well as the guess that we just put in. So I'll send it. Now Jay's going to get a notification on his phone in the horn score, and it's on your top
Here it
right in
is.
your settings.
It's right here. It says HornScore BC has shared a score with you.
Yep.
And then it says what you think he scores. and then I can click on the 4 videos. The 4 videos are right here. I can scroll from video to video. Pretty sweet. I mean, that
And you
happened
can
instantaneously.
download those videos. So if you wanted to download right those to your phone and then go rescore it, it's super easy. You could just start a new score with the same 4 videos.
So I'm going to click that download button right there in that upper
Yep.
right hand corner. And now I have that video that Blake just sent me, and I can put it in my calculator and give him my estimates and send it back to him.
And we've talked about this in other places, but it's always worth reiterating. iPhone will store location data if you have it turned on your phone. Our app will not. So the second you put a video in the app, your location does not come with it. Even if you have location turned on, it will not keep the location. So if someone downloads one of your scores, they will not see where that video was taken. The location will be blank.
It
So
was
we don't.
very important to us to make sure that those were sacred and that there was no way that those locations could be given up. So the app has absolutely turned off any location. There is no way to track location of those videos.
Yep. The other way you can send the score, this would be the the next option, particularly if people don't have the app, you can text a score and web link. If I wanted to text a score and web link, I could text this to Jay right here, and he's going to get a score. Let's see, send. So Jay
I've
just got the
already
text.
got it.
So if someone doesn't have the app, this is a really cool way because it still preserves all the media. So you can
And
still
then I
open all
just
the
open it
files.
up. It's on the website.
Yep. You can scroll through the score and you can see all the videos the same way. So that's a great way to send it to friends who don't have the app yet, but you still want to share that with them. There's a couple more options on the sharing. A couple of them I'll touch on fast. View on web is if you want to see your own score in the way that Jay just looked at it. So if you want to see the web version of it, you can do that. Copy link is just creates a URL out of your score. So if you wanted to share your score in anywhere that allows a URL to be pasted, whether it be an email, certain comment sections allow it, some don't. There's a lot of ways. It's a great way to rescore someone else's animal, and you could actually embed it in the comments of our app too, which is a cool way to do it. So anywhere you can put a link, and then you have the share as image. The share as image gives you two options. It gives you a square image, which we call like a scorecard, and it also has a full score image, which is just the full length of your phone's screen. And they serve the same purpose. There's just the square image is built more for social media platforms that have a restricted aspect ratio. The full length square image is more just like the full length of your phone. So like a square image is great for an Instagram post. A full length image is awesome for a is awesome for a Instagram reel or something like that, or an Instagram story. And what I'll probably do is
Go
just
ahead and
clip
send me
an
one.
image of this in or something in the video. What'd you say, Jay?
Go ahead and send me this. Send it to
Let's
me.
see.
Text it.
Let's try the square image here. So this is a preview of what the square image looks like. And if I want to share it, all I do is hit share scorecard image. Jay's up in my recent text. Now it's sent. So now Jay is going to get my scorecard image.
I've already got it.
And then
Popped
you
up
would
that
do.
fast.
So you can also obviously save these to your camera roll too, just like a normal iOS. Whenever you save a document or something, you can save it to your camera roll. And the last one is you go back to this full image, and the full image is going to look exactly like your preview here with your username added, a couple other things here. So then I'm going to text this one to Jay, and now he's got that version of it too.
Already got it.
So that's what we encourage people to do is share scores within the app or score links, just because it's a much more interactive process all the way around. But we obviously have an image version for posting, saving. You can share however you want. We wanted to create as many sharing mechanisms as possible. It's just a more interactive experience when it comes as a link or within the app. It allows you to comment and just see all the media, which is, for me, if someone sends me a field judge score, it's the thumbnail image is worth nothing to me. If they actually want me to give them a field judge on their animal, I want the videos, I want all the media they can give me. And that's the coolest way, is to see their guess with all the media attached.
And that's where sharing it through the app is best, because then you can see all of that.
Yep. So that's the share process. The only other thing I'll note here real quick, once you've gone through this process and I hit upload complete, close share, it's going to take me back to the home screen. If I ever go back into this score, now I can, since everything's up to date, so you can see where it says the name, it says unlisted, so it tells you what your privacy setting is. If I want to share it again, I just hit the share info button back from the calculator, and I have all these same sharing mechanisms. The only thing to be aware of is if I were to go back in and work on this project again, and let's say I change this left first to 16, now the score isn't accurate. So you'll see what will say this out of sync. Well, it's not accurate, but the score is not up to date. So as soon as I make adjustments, it says out of sync. You just hit that re-upload and go through the process again, and then you can share it again. So anytime you make changes, you just have to re-upload it to sync it to the cloud correctly. Um, but that's kind of the process of sharing. You have a lot of different options, and we wanted to give as many as possible to people. So and then you're done with your score at that point, or your judge, or until you go back in and if it's a field judge and animal maybe haven't harvested yet, you go back in and edit it. The last step would obviously be to hopefully harvest score the animal if it's something you want to harvest, right?
Absolutely. Blake, a couple things I'd like to point out. Go to the three dots in the upper right. In particular, if for whatever reason this bull was a non-typical and you needed to have more boxes in the calculator, show them how you can find more boxes.
Right now we have 5 typical boxes and 1 abnormal. If you wanted to expand that, you would hit this dot 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 like Jay said, and then you'd hit this show optional button. Now I'm going to have 8 typical points to work with and 5 abnormal points to work with for each side. And that's the case for all antlered animals. So anytime you need more boxes, you can always go up to this dot 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 and hit the show optional. And then if you want to collapse that back down, you just hit the hide optional and it'll collapse it back down to just showing 5 typical points and 1 abnormal. That's one thing we've had questions on, right? Is I need more than 1 abnormal point, or I need a 6 typical point. Anytime you need that, that's where you can go find it.
Absolutely. A couple other things hidden in that box. Go to the three. Um, Go over the save as default, manage default, and copy values.
Yep. So the save as default, this will have different uses depending on the animal that you're hunting. We talk a lot about it with sheep and how you might leverage it. But if you want to make your own custom defaults, like when we started that score, we had a elk ours is pretty extensive, right? We have from a 270-inch 5x5 up to a 406x6. So we've covered our bases pretty good. But maybe if we didn't, maybe you're in a place that has really short main beams or whatever the nature is, you want to make your own custom default. So you want your calculator to pre-fill with something. One thing I like to remind people of is the default doesn't necessarily have to be the entire score either. Maybe you want a default that's just main beams or just mass or just inside spreads, whatever the nature of what you want it for. Take a whitetail guy where they have genetics in Texas, certain genetics, and you want to create one. Maybe ours doesn't satisfy that. That's where you can make your own default. So in this case, let's say I wanted a curvy default because maybe I'm going to use it from this year and pull it up for next year when I see him again next time, just to kind of see how he's changed. That would be maybe a potential use case. Is I could hit this save as default, and I could make this default named Curvy.
2020.
And yep, we'll go to Curvy 2020, and I'm going to save that. And now that default will show up when I create a new score. So you'll see it alongside our list. You'll see your own custom defaults, and you can also go in here and always manage your custom defaults as well. So I have another one from a tutorial video, and then I have Kirby 2020, and you can use those however you think you can best leverage them. But custom defaults are awesome, especially for certain species and however you want to use it.
And then the copy values, that has a lot of value to me when I'm scoring a typical 6x6 or 7x7. And, it looks real clean, real typical. All the points, look cookie cutter. I might just go in there and just do one whole left side because I know the right side. If I'm trying to do it quick, I'm going to go in there and add one side or the other. And then I can copy those values from one side to the other, right?
Yeah, so what's cool is let's show it real quick. So we're gonna go in and we're gonna create a new score. We're gonna go elk because we'll just show these couple features here. So we're just gonna give this a test name, and we're gonna hit select defaults here. And I want to point out a couple things. One, you're gonna find your own defaults here at the bottom. So now you have your Curvy 2020. I'm not gonna select this default just because I want to show the copy left right feature here, but if you wanted to pre-fill with that, what do we have, Matt? 367? It would
Yep.
pre-fill with those values. So this time we're not going to use a default, and we're just going to skip the entering information. We're going to skip. We'll add one video just to show it. I'll show this single video photo just to show something different. And let's say I use this right here, Now, if I wanted to trim this video, since I chose single video photo, I could grab this and trim this video down and shorten it, which we'll do just for an example standpoint. Now to show this copy left right, Jay, you're going to spit some numbers at me real quick. So I
Yep.
know we just did this bowl, so we don't need to pretend like we're judging it, but give me
Yep.
some quick ones. Oop, 53. All right. And now we're not going to do spread, obviously. So if I wanted to hit copy left right, I'd go up here to my dot, dot, dot. We just did the whole left side. I'd go down here, I'd hit copy values. Now it's going to give you the option to copy from left to right or right to left. Obviously, in this case, it'd be left to
Left
right.
to right.
And it copied all the values over. So now we're at our 320. We'd go in and add our inside spread and we're to our score. So that's a great way if A, an animal is really symmetrical, or B, if maybe in the video you have, you can only see one side, right? And it's like that's the best you got because maybe you can only see one side good. Maybe it's a short video and it's all you have. That's another use case for using the entire copy left to right. It's a cool feature to use for sure.
Very, very useful on a typical elk or typical deer where the sides are very symmetrical and matching. You can get to the score very quick, a rough score quick.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. It's and so that's the thing is in development of this app, we've tried to put in features where you can get to scores very quickly or leverage the tool, to get to scores very quickly if you're trying to judge something fast. But then there's a lot of features and tools to really dive into the nitty gritty, take your time. It's all circumstantial, right? And that's what field judging is. Sometimes it's fast and you're trying to make a quick decision. Sometimes you have days upon days to sit there and break it down. And we want people to be able to use this app both ways, whether they're trying to be really quick or whether they want to, they have time to stew on it and really break it down.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we're all working together, trying to learn together. We're all a community. We're trying to help each other get better. And I think, I learn stuff every day, and it's important that, in creating this app, we wanted to build community. We wanted to build a place that's safe where people could come and share ideas and scores, and I think we've done that. And you've gone over the share features. You've gone over how to share your score, all of the different ways. There's also a social media aspect or a social aspect where you can comment and such on public scores. And that's a great feature. I think that is if people are going to really enjoy being able to go on and look at other people's scores, ask questions, give thumbs ups, and get better by looking at these public scores, looking at these measurements, both official and camp scores, unofficial. And that's another value in the app of being able to comment and ask questions from other users out there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm just kind of scrolling the public scores, just showing people what all's on here. And obviously, there's a variety of species, and this is something that's going to grow way more over time, right? We're at kind of the inception of this thing, and so this will be a feature that develops a lot as the app grows.
And with that being said, I think it's important that people share their scores publicly, and try and put the state and the county and the unit, and that way we can take the data and we can make charts and we can extrapolate things from Iowa and Ohio and Michigan and Utah and Oregon and Washington and compare animals, compare whitetails from Iowa to whitetails in Mississippi and compare mule deer from, Oregon to Colorado to New Mexico to Sonora, Mexico, and see some of the similarities and see some of the differences. And, the details and all the nitty gritty is where we're hoping that people will learn from each other. And by being able to document and have a place to access this information, that's where we feel the value really is. And you draw a tag in the breaks of Montana. You've never been to the breaks, but you can go on and you can see sheep that were killed in the breaks, and you can see the date that they were killed. You can see the bases. You can see the first and second and third quarters. You can see the different areas in around the breaks. Maybe it's not a breaks ram, but it's 40, 50 miles away. You can see those similarities, and that's where we think when people start sharing their harvest scores and their field judge scores, that's where the users are going to be able to get a lot of that historical data out of it.
And leverage the anatomicals whenever users post them. So, like if I know a couple Coos bucks on here, one that you posted, one that I posted. Um, we have anatomicals attached to it. Let's see if I can find them in here without looking too hard. So I know that this buck, for example, if I go on this public score and I go down to the bottom, so you can see all the media that I uploaded the score, but just to highlight it, if you go down to the very bottom of the score, you can click on this anatomicals button and you can see the anatomicals that were measured, which is really cool. You know, if you're looking for some references, maybe you're going down like these are both, I believe they're both Sonora bucks, right, Jay? Is
Yep.
the one you made public? Do you know?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure if that one's public. Oh yeah, here it is, right here. Maybe like these are both from Sonora. You're looking in Sonora and you're trying to learn some anatomicals. This is where you can go on and start, leveraging some of this stuff, seeing some of this.
Well, and seeing the differences in region from region to region, and if you've never hunted, you're in Mississippi and you're going to Iowa on your first whitetail hunt, and you want to go see whitetails from Iowa, go click on the anatomicals that the users are going to input, and that's why I want to encourage the users to try and measure every anatomical and record them and make them public, so that people can start getting a sense of ear to ear and nose to ear and burr of antler to the tip of the nose and the bottom of the belly to the top of the back, and a lot of those anatomicals over time will become super valuable for the users out there when they're bouncing around and hunting different geographical regions.
Yeah, I know it's one of those things you kind of have to train yourself because it's not a normal habit to do. You know, at least for me, I've been starting to do it a lot more, and I've leveraged anatomicals, but I'd never really been in the practice of actually measuring them for myself. Just it was not something I ever thought of, and now I have to remember to do it before I start, processing my animal. So it's one thing is to have a little cloth tape in your backpack and, if nothing else, take the ones that you utilize a lot for whatever animal it is that you're after. And it benefits you greatly moving forward anytime you go back to that area, especially for the animals that vary a lot, like whitetails, for example. There's so much variance, because they cover such a large area.
But
But I mean,
but the
everything
hope
has,
is, sorry to interrupt, but the hope is then we can catalog those anatomicals and start building charts based on geographic region from region to region, and start building charts for you guys and start building defaults so that um, from state to state, from region to region, the differences in the anatomicals, and it's going to make a huge difference in judging your animals for sure.
for sure. All right. Well, that kind of wraps up, how to field judge a bull. That was obviously one example. We'll put more up, but it's it's always fun to get into your brain a little bit because I think what is it a wasted youth? Is that what you always say?
There's
Something
a
about a
lot of
wasted.
stuff. There's a lot of stuff rattling around inside this brain, buddy.
Yeah,
But some of it's useless knowledge. Some of it has some value for sure. But I appreciate the listeners, the users checking this out, and appreciate you having me on here.
yeah, awesome. Hopefully you guys learned something. Thanks for watching.